Mercedes notoriously failed to capitalize on this season's brand new technical regulations, with their W13 falling short of rivals Red Bull and Ferrari, bringing their 8-year period of dominance to a definite end. Mercedes went from hunted to hunters, as they're now only the third fastest team. And given their 8 successive Constructors' Championships, no one is surprised about the team's ongoing willingness to get back to the top. But Mercedes have been unable to come up with a solution of their own, as the team has been unsuccessfully introducing upgrades to their W13 almost every race weekend, yet still failing to outperform the competition. The team updated their car heavily for the British Grand Prix, as they did for Canada, but it still wasn't enough, as both Red Bull and Ferrari held an edge over the Silver Arrows nevertheless. This is now forcing Mercedes' engineers to put their dignity and pride aside and resort to copying Red Bull's all-conquering RB18 car with their side pods, but mainly a different, very specific part of the Red Bull car attracting the looks of the Mercedes technicians in particular. So, what exactly did Mercedes' technical director Mike Elliott have to say about pursuing Red Bull's design concept? Is it really necessary to copy a rival? And are we going to see a silver Red Bull lineup on the grid in a few races' time? Stick around, as that's exactly what we'll be covering in today's video. To understand where it all went wrong for the Silver Arrows, we need to take a short trip down memory lane. Mercedes pulled up to Barcelona testing with a car that, at the time, seemed like the class of the field. The Silver Arrows took the 2 fastest times of the whole 3-day testing period, with Lewis Hamilton beating George Russell by the smallest of margins. That Barcelona specification Silver Arrow looked like a car one would expect from a team with the longest domination period in the history of the sport. But a few weeks later, Mercedes unpacked their W13 in Bahrain for the second preseason test, and this is where things start to go horribly wrong. With a bold no side pod design, the team crumbled down to 5th fastest overall, with the 2 drivers often not even scraping their way into the top 10. But Hamilton was still confident, and the overall narrative was that Mercedes are sandbagging again, as they're trying to hide the true power of the no side pod design. "My team don't make mistakes," Lewis famously said at one of the tests when asked about Mercedes potentially getting it wrong with their bold car concept. But after a couple initial rounds of the season, it was evident that Mercedes indeed got it wrong, with all team members openly admitting that the concept simply doesn't work as they expected, with porpoising, bouncing, and a genuine lack in pace all plaguing the Silver Arrows. With all this being said, Mercedes have simply been unsuccessful in creating their own car concept. And with Red Bull's RB18 already recording 7 wins out of the 10 races, it seemed like low-hanging fruit for the Mercedes engineers to resort to a similar car concept, as Elliott was now caught saying the team are indeed starting to look at their race-winning rivals and will shortly be applying specific bits and pieces of the Red Bull concept to the team's W13. "I think it would be silly not to have a level of humility and not think you might have got it wrong, and not go and look at what everyone else has done," Elliott opened up. "We've evaluated some of the concepts in that direction. I'm not going to say which way we're going to go, but we will look at that Red Bull solution." But the technical director admitted it's not only Red Bull they're looking at, but rather trying to evaluate all the concepts on the grid and pick out the best attributes of each car design, and then putting them into fruition on the W13. Elliott believes the main area where Mercedes is lacking to Red Bull is in the aerodynamics department, particularly when it comes to the floor design. The all-new 2022 ground effect cars are heavily reliant on their floors, as that's their primary source of downforce this season. In Formula One's latest bid to reduce dirty air and promote closer racing, the cars were stripped of all complex barge boards and aerodynamically thought-out front wings, with the majority of performance coming directly through the Venturi tunnels within a car's floor design. Many have been attributing Red Bull's performance to their side pod design. So, when asked whether Mercedes will be adapting Red Bull's aggressive side pods as a potential resolution to their flawed car design, Elliott had the following to say: "I think the bodywork, the bit that is visibly different, is probably not the key differentiator, if you'd like. It's the detail in the floor design," he said, making it clear that the only part of that Red Bull Mercedes are interested in is the floor. When asked about the timeline of the upgrade coming into fruition on the car, Elliott was hesitant to put a number on it, and didn't rule out keeping the car the way it is until the end of the year, only adapting to Red Bull's philosophy for 2023. Maybe we'll see changes this year, maybe we'll see changes next year, or maybe we'll stick with where we are. I think they're the questions we're trying to answer, concluded the team's technical director. There's nothing unusual about teams copying one another, and many, including us here at Formula Zone, have seen this coming from a mile away. The 2022 regulations were arguably the single biggest regulatory change Formula One has ever seen, so the FIA gave teams more breathing space, not making the regulations as tight as in previous years, as the governing body wanted to see as many different concepts as humanly possible. When the 10 individual cars were revealed for the first time, there weren't two challengers that would resemble one another, with all teams opting for vastly different approaches. But it was inevitable that some teams will simply end up getting it wrong, while others will succeed massively. So it wasn't unexpected when a couple races into the season, competitors started adapting their counterparts' designs in pursuit of added performance. Aston Martin have been the most visible example of this trend, with the team literally copying Red Bull's radical side pods to a T. And while Mercedes' concept was not a complete flop, with the team still remaining firmly in the top 3, it is certainly not what Mercedes hoped for given their previous success. TOTO WOLFF stated after Silverstone that whilst Mercedes are still far from where they desire to be, they're now starting to flirt with the W13, as he praised the Silver Arrows for starting to move in the right direction. Mercedes have changed their car significantly since it first ran in the Bahrain test, with an upgrade waiting for the W13 with almost every race weekend. Most of those updates were aimed at solving the team's porpoising gremlins. In terms of the concept of the car, we've actually changed our car an awful lot since it first ran, the team's trackside engineering director Andrew SHOVLIN opened up. It's behaving very, very differently to when it first ran. Even though if you look at it from a distance, it looks quite similar to what we had at round 1 aerodynamically. It is quite a different beast now. In the first few races, we were literally just sort of fighting to survive, and the drivers were fighting to survive with a car that was incredibly difficult to work with, he added, before praising Mercedes on the incredible job they've done to eliminate porpoising out of their concept. And whilst our issues with bouncing quite rightly generated a lot of interest in the early races, because we were at the worst end of the pack, if you look at us here at Silverstone, I think we're actually near the better end of it, SHOVLIN concluded on a positive note. So, whether Mercedes fully commit to their concept for this season and start working on Red Bull's approach for next year only, or whether they'll try to make the switch as early as this season, is hard to predict. But it'll certainly be interesting to watch how this unfolds between Christian Horner and TOTO WOLFF, as there's nothing these two love more than poking fun at one another. And Mercedes committing to a Red Bull concept would be the ultimate sign of defeat, something the Red Bull team would most likely celebrate by stocking up on the Silver Red Bull edition. But we want to know what you guys think. Do you think Mercedes should just copy Red Bull's approach? Is copying the nature of the sport? Should it be banned? And what would you do if you were TOTO WOLFF? Let us know in the comments down below. We've recently started a second channel called Front Row Lockout, where our sole aim is to keep you in pole position with all the latest stories from the F1 paddock with sub 3-minute long and value-packed videos. We would dearly appreciate your support by subscribing. Plus, there's an ongoing giveaway for all subscribers of the new channel, which you surely don't want to miss, as you can win prizes such as your favorite team's merch and much more.